And at the end of, isn't it amazing too, at the end of Zechariah, it describes how the Lord is going to change the topography of the region.
Yes.
When he comes back. He splits the Mount of Olives. There's a ravine from Jerusalem all the way down into Egypt that he raises up. It's considered the deepest depression on the planet Earth right now. And he just brings it up to level. And why does he do that? Who knows? But it's amazing that he does.
You're right. And there's that sea, famous or infamous, I'm not sure which, called the Dead Sea. Very, very low elevation. And in fact, going down from Galilee and the river that runs down to the Dead Sea is part of a huge rift. And geologists say that one day that rift is going to cut loose and change the topography all through Israel. And it's in the book, as they say.
Exactly.
The Bible talks about that.
We don't even have to guess about it.
Right.
It's there. And the thing that Zechariah has such an interesting story too in the Bible when you study why God raised him up when he did. So it was the post-exile season. They had been in Babylon for 70 years. They're back. Persia comes in, and Cyrus, God's anointed and his servant, as he declared in Isaiah, comes in and conquers Babylon and sets them free to go rebuild the temple. And there's a lot of ancient writings that describe how Daniel showed Cyrus how he was prophesied in the book of Isaiah 150 years before he was even born, by name. And so Cyrus is so amazed, he sets the captives free to go back and rebuild the temple. And so they go back, and God raises up Malachi to prophesy to encourage them to rebuild the temple, but they don't get very far because they're spiritually immature. And that's when then he raises up Zechariah to prophesy all of this to try to push them to spiritual maturity, to get them to finish the temple. And I think that's amazing that God raised up this prophet and gave him all of these amazing insights into Jesus's first arrival and his second arrival to encourage the people then, but to encourage us today as well.
And Matt, rereading Zechariah, and by the way, if you get a chance, you'll love it, because Zechariah does things in a very brief way, succinct, and just point after point after point right on line. I'm looking at chapter 2, the man with a measuring line, chapter 3, the cleansing of Joshua the high priest, and then chapter 4, the golden candlestick and the olive trees, and then there's a flying scroll, and then there are 4 chariots, and as these symbols come one after another, you talk about something that's inspiring. It's just, you can almost see the big screen movie of this thing as it rolls past. And it's so dramatic and so positive when it comes to the power and the presence of the Lord. It's really breathtaking to me. I read through it again before we sat down to talk, and I had forgotten how dramatic it is.
It's an outstanding book, and you're right. Those visions that God gave Zechariah from chapter 1, verse 7, all the way to chapter 6, verse 15, he gave him all of them in one night.
Yes.
And you have the rider on the red horse we discussed, where God declares the end from the beginning, the aftermath of the battle, and then God spends the time in the rest of the book telling you how it gets to that battle, the Battle of Armageddon.
Right.
And even in chapter 5, you have the woman in the ephah describing how that harlot system will return to its base in Babylon.
UFO,
yes.
An ephah, which is a basket, and an evil woman riding in the basket. And you talk about UAPs.
That's one you don't want to see, though. The wickedness returning to the Middle East.
That's for sure.
She even has on her forehead a name written, wickedness.
Wickedness.
And it's amazing how when you study that whole event, you have the women and the woman in the ephah, and you have these storks, which are an unclean bird to the Jews, coming and lifting it up to return to the plain of Shinar so that it could establish itself once again on her own base.
Right.
And it automatically takes you all the way back to what is the plain of Shinar. Well, it's the founding with Nimrod and Babylon. It's that whole harlot occultic system that began with Nimrod and Babylon and finishes with the Antichrist in Revelation. It comes full circle, and Zechariah prophesied that.
And so all those kids carrying flags in the streets and wearing strange costumes and demonstrating against Israel should read Zechariah. Because Zechariah says it very plainly. God has a plan for national Israel, and it's a point by point by point plan. And when you come to the end of Zechariah's prophecy, you come to an amazing resolution. It's just, you take a deep breath and say, at last, now we get a little bit of a picture of what God is doing.
And you're right, Gary, you do come to a resolution. And the resolution that the world needs to be aware of is that resolution is Christ.
Yes.
The Messiah, the King of Israel. And he's our king, but he's also the King of the Jews. And he will have his eternal city. And he's going to rule and reign from the throne of David in that city, as the angel promised Mary when she was pregnant with him, that her son would sit on the throne of David. That's a ruling political throne whose capital is in Jerusalem. And all of the people that want to wipe out Israel, the thing that it's almost like they don't understand the spiritual side of it. I know they don't.
Right.
Or else they would turn. But Satan is taking advantage of that and really getting a lot of people mustered against Israel. And at some point, we know from Zechariah, they will stand alone in this world, and they will be pushed to the brink. And we know from Zechariah 13 that during the tribulation, 2 out of 3 Jews die, unfortunately, and during that time period. And so one of the missions that we all need to do is to be witnessing to the Jews, because God gives us the ratio, not the number, thankfully. So the more Jews we get saved, the less there are of the 2/3.
And praying for the peace of Jerusalem.
And praying for the peace of Jerusalem, because ever since October 7th, there's just been tension.
Yes.
Back and forth. And it's hard to sit here and imagine that that's been almost a year ago.
I know. It's amazing. Time flies. And even as we're sitting here talking about this, there is intense plotting, planning, fighting, positioning, politicking. Israel is, I think, at the crossroads of the planet Earth. If there is a spot on planet Earth that is the place where God has his finger, that's it. And everything else is rotating around this political chicanery of all sorts, financial chicanery all over the world, wars, rumors of wars, and God's finger is still right there on Israel.